I'm John Smid. I'm an ex-Exgay leader. I was the executive director at Love in Action International for 18 years. I was on the board of directors for Exodus International for 11 years. I realized I was gay at a very early age. I've always been known for loving cars, and I look back at my history and I think my love for cars came on about the same time I realized I was gay. I was attracted to guys when I was in high school and earlier, but I didn't know that was gay. I didn't know that was homosexual. I grew up in the late 50s and 60s, and we didn't talk about that stuff. So I didn't have any words. I didn't have any way to apply what I was feeling to a reality. When I first married at 19, I was sexually a virgin. I didn't really think about sex other than I was afraid of it. It was more a lack of experience when I got into the marriage. And as I look back, I had no sexual affection or sexual attraction to her, but I didn't know the difference. I never contrasted gay versus straight because I was so naive. So for me, it wasn't really about being attracted or not attracted. She was just my wife. And we had sex, and we had 2 kids. When I was about 24 years old, I met a guy that I worked with that I knew was gay. And this was after I started realizing that I was gay myself, and I hadn't talked to anyone about it. So he and I went out one night, and I exposed that part of me to him. I said, I'm gay, and I want to talk about that. And that discussion ended up in my first same-sex sexual encounter. And so I went home, and within about 2 weeks I told my wife that I was gay and that I wanted a divorce. And I came out. I just came out. I went to started developing gay friends. I went to the gay bars. I lived in an apartment building where everyone in the building was gay. I did not care at all who knew. I was out, and that's all I wanted to be, was authentic and real and open. And so being gay to me was something I accepted and embraced almost from the moment I realized it myself. I think one of the main reasons I didn't really have an issue with being gay is that I did not have a strong religious base. I wasn't concerned about a church or a religion or a particular faith. That was not really a part of my life at the time. When I was out in my 20s, I really wanted to connect to another significant person. I wanted a relationship. And so I dated several men, and each one of those relationships ended up being either they broke off from me, or it was some kind of turmoil in the relationship, and it was really becoming kind of painful because I really didn't find that person that I really wanted to connect to in a way that was really positive and healthy. And a friend of mine at work knew that I was struggling, and she began to talk with me about the Bible and about Jesus, about her faith, and she knew I was gay, of course, because everybody did, and she began to kind of lean into the discussion about being gay is not God's best, and that's probably why I was having problems, and that there was never going to be a satisfying relationship. I would never find peace if I remained gay and moved into any kind of faith. And so I trusted her. I respected her because she seemed to know more than I did. She invited me to her church, and I began to get involved, and the messages came very clear from the church institutions that I got connected to that being gay was sinful and wrong, and you could never find peace if you remained in those gay relationships. And so I believed them. I took them at their word. I believed their authority. I think I lived for about a year kind of on the fence about whether I was going to really embrace this Christian message or if I was going to not embrace it. And after about a year, I just decided to sever all my ties with all my gay friends and completely embrace this Christian faith. On Focus on the Family, they had a guest whose name was Barbara Johnson, and she was very, very prolific in her message. And they said that they had information on Exgay ministries, and I had never heard of that before. And so I wrote Focus on the Family back in the day when you'd handwrite things. I wrote them a letter and said, this is who I am, I'm interested in your information. And so I received in the mail an information brochure from Exodus International, and I received a phone call from Anita Worthen, who was the director's wife from Love in Action. And that phone call was an offer for me to apply for a position as an assistant house leader in one of their residential houses. That's all I knew. I had never read a book. I had never read literature. I knew nothing about this whole ex-gay ministry culture. I knew nothing about it. But I was so naive and so believing that God was going to lead me that sounded like the best plan for me. So I started dating a couple of women, and those didn't really work out. And then I found one girl that I was really connected to. We got along well, and I thought that seems to be the next best thing, is that I would possibly pursue a dating relationship with her. So we started dating a little bit, and this was about the time I heard about Exgay ministry. It's about the same time in my process, and I thought, there's some conflicts going on here, and I'm feeling a lot of anxiety about this relationship, and I don't know how to resolve it. And I don't want another relationship to go south. I was feeling really guilty about the mistakes I'd made earlier. So I thought, Exgay ministry, they're the professionals, they know what they're doing, and this ministry called Love in Action is led by an ex-gay man and his wife. So surely they can help me to navigate through this relationship. And so, offering me position, I desperately wanted full-time ministry because I was so loving this whole Christian thing. I accepted the position at Love in Action. A lot of it was very white-knuckling. It was very much, I can make it, I can do it if I just make it one more day. And I wanted so desperately for God to bring about that attraction in me that I abstained from even masturbation for 18 years. During the later years I was at Love in Action, we really promoted the recovery from homosexuality as similar to any form of addiction therapy, dealing with addiction. And of course, I recognized long ago that was absolutely insane to call homosexuality an addiction. But we just tried so hard to find an answer. We needed to find a fix for this thing that somehow we believed God said was so terrible. But yet we knew there were people who would have sexual experiences. We'd call them falls. They would have a sexual fall. It was very painful for everybody when that would go on. My prayer was, God, help me to be attracted to my wife in a way that's satisfying to me and to her. Never found any victory, never found any satisfaction in that particular prayer. It was really kind of a mind game of kind of dancing around that reality that we were all still very attracted to people of the same gender. In 2012, I finally came to the place after 24 years of marriage where I said, I'm done. I'm finally at the point where I am admitting to myself that this is not working, nor will it ever work. Taught things that are clearly wrong. I taught things that that harmed people. I taught things that were kind of goofy at the time, because many times I taught things off the cuff. I just want to acknowledge that I did something that harmed people. Teaching the things that we taught from the time they're children and they're gay, it builds and it builds and it builds and it builds, and it can create psychological imbalances. I think in and of itself it can create that, and can lead someone then to feel such horrific despair that they would choose to end their life in suicide. And so we were a part of that picture. We clearly were a part of that picture. Most people who went through these programs came away with extreme despair, depression, disappointment, discouragement. None of them experienced an eradication of their homosexuality. None of them experienced freedom from the attractions or the draw to want to be with someone of the same gender. To the parent who is considering conversion therapy, a counselor, ex-gay ministry, and you have a gay child, I want you to understand from my own experience and all the many years of dealing with this with many, many others, your child's best life is going to be lived as an authentic person. To attempt to change any form of their sexuality from an outside source will do nothing but cause them to run off the rails. It will create horrific anxiety, deep levels of confusion that may not be seen today, but it will be seen in the long term. I'm sorry, but I've never seen a real success story of anyone who's changed from homosexual to heterosexual. The ex-gay message for so many years in my life created a false self. It harmed me internally because of the energy that I put out there to keep trying to believe it. It's taking me years to deconstruct that. I had a wrong view of God. I had a wrong view of my spirituality. I adapted a shame-based view of my life. And that was something I'm having a hard time to fight against. I realized that through my past, I made it into something much, much bigger than it is by this duality that people think they have to fit into. And I realize now, I don't know why I made it such a big deal. I mean, why do I care who chooses to love each other? Why do I care? Why do I make that a big deal? Why can't people just love who they want to love? Be authentic. Learn what it means to be authentic. That means to be who you really are.